parable of the rich fool. You'll find in the Pew Bible on page 905. It is Luke chapter 12 and begins with the 13th verse. And I still hear some pages. Okay. One of the multitude said to Jesus, "Teacher, bid my brother divide the inheritance with me." But he said to him, "Man, who made me a judge or divider over you?" And he said to them, "Take heed and beware of all covetousness, for a man's life does not consist in the abundance of his possessions." And he told them a parable, saying, "The land of a rich man brought forth plentifully. And he thought to himself, 'What shall I do? For I have nowhere to store my crops.' And he said, 'I'll do this. I'll pull down my barns and build larger ones. And there I will store all my grain and my goods. And I will say to my soul, Soul, you have ample goods laid up for many years. Take your ease, eat, drink, be merry.' But God said to him, 'Fool, this night your soul is required of you. And the things you have prepared, whose will they be? So is he who lays up treasure for himself and is not rich toward God.'" This is the word of God for we, the people of God. Thanks be to God. Thank you. Thank you every Sunday for such beautiful music. So, have you seen that show, Hoarders? It's one of those things, it's like a car accident. You think you shouldn't even go look, and yet you can't pull your eyes away. It's about the struggle and treatment of people who cannot let go of anything. At first, it's actual valuable items, and then it turns into just even trash. Just can't let go of anything, and it, of course, makes their house unlivable. Well, if you're like me and you find it hard to turn your eyes away, you're not alone. In 2009, when it debuted on A&E, it was the most watched series for adults aged 18 to 49, and tied for the most ever watched series with adults aged 25 to 54. Well, I'm a little older than that, but I get it. I think really, part of it, people fear they might be headed in that direction. Do you ever fear that you're heading in that direction? I mean, I could give you a tour of my basement, and you'd probably worry about me. I can't tell you how many times I've said, all right, I'm going to be ruthless. I'm going to take this box, and I'm going to fill it, and I'm going to take it to Goodwill. And then you start going through, like just yesterday, I had a doll, an old doll that I was going to give up. And then I happened to spot on the back of her neck, kind of engraved in her neck, you know what it said? Baby Susan. And I said, I can't give up this old doll that says Baby Susan on it. Anyone listening to this on CD, my name is Susan. I understand. And you know what? It was the same in Jesus' day. They might have not have had all that we had, but they didn't want to let go of it any more than we do. I think that's why there are about 500 Bible verses on prayer and about 200 on faith, but there are about 2,000 on money and possessions. Jesus had a lot to say about it. Hence the parable of the rich fool that we have today. And I think what's good to notice, first of all, in this parable is what Jesus doesn't say. What isn't in the parable? Jesus doesn't define wealth at all. He doesn't say, well, this makes you rich, or you're not there yet, if. He doesn't define it. And he doesn't say that wealth, to be wealthy, to have riches, is a sin. He doesn't say you can't be his disciple then if you're wealthy. He doesn't say that God is against money. I mean, after all, who made that rich man in the parable rich? God sent the rain and the sunshine. God provided that bumper crop. God blessed that rich man. Doesn't say that the man is wrong to put some aside for a rainy day. We think back in the Old Testament to Joseph. Joseph kept putting away the grain for when the famine was coming. It's not wrong to be prepared. Doesn't even say that working hard to become rich is wrong. Jesus doesn't call the rich man evil. What does he call him? Fool. He calls him a fool. Why is he a fool? Well, first of all, he is completely focused. He is utterly consumed with this wealth. He's got to protect it. He's got to make room for it. He's got to care for it, to keep it. He's got to keep it. It's the center of his life, his activity. He's all about what he has. And why is that? Because he thinks that this wealth is going to secure his future. This is how he makes sure that life continues to be good. It makes his life good, so he thinks. Someone has said the seduction of wealth is the illusion it gives us control over our lives. This man has given finite things infinite value. Where once he possessed wealth, now it possesses him. He doesn't see that what he has always been and is at this moment God's gift to him. God's not even in the picture for this man. He did it all. He planted those crops. He reaped those crops. He's putting them in a new barn. He's building him, he, me, mine. My crops, my grain, my barns, my goods, it's all his. Why, he isn't even planning to give any to family, which was so important in that time, it still is today, to give an inheritance, to be able to bless those who come behind you. No, this man has only himself. He talks to himself. He consults with himself. It reminds me of Marley's Ghost and Scrooge in my very favorite Christmas book, A Christmas Carol. Remember when Marley comes to visit Scrooge and he is in obviously such agony with all this weight he's carrying and the life that he's lived. And Scrooge says, but you were always such a good man of business, Marley. And he says, no. He says, mankind was my business. The common welfare was my business. Charity, mercy, forbearance, and benevolence were all my business. The dealings of my trade were but a drop of water in the comprehensive ocean of my business. So God calls him a fool because he left out what's really the core of life: love, joy, generosity, and kindness, because of gratitude to God, for which he has none either. He has gratitude only for himself and his efforts. So this parable asks us the obvious question then: what makes for life? What is life really about? Jesus is asking them with this parable, and you and I. This man, by what he chose, was both isolating and insulating himself from his fellow man, from his family, by his utter focus on things and wealth. Now, I was thinking about this. Maybe we don't have a problem with things and wealth, but we might still be a hoarder. Sometimes we hoard love. Another word for that is jealousy. We want to have it all and not someone else to have any. Or sometimes we hoard reputation. I want to be the great one. I want to be the praised and applauded one, not that one. And I guess that's jealousy too, and pride. I want to be the one with the reputation that everyone looks to and looks up to. I want to be the one that it looks like God's really blessed because God, well, I'm one of God's favorites. That's hoarding too. You know, all kinds of greed. It represents a deep desire for connection in reality. It's a warped love because in our need for what we really want, what will really meet our heart's desire, connection with other human beings and, of course, with God, instead we attach to inanimate things, to wealth, material idols. But Jesus' parable reminds us, like in A Christmas Carol, that death perhaps may come before we would ever expect it. And the God that we have trusted is going to be all too apparent in that time. Remember what Jesus said: store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moths and rust cannot destroy, and thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. It's a good thing as it was for Scrooge in that story, for us to face our own mortality and think about what we have been living for. And I'm going to say to you what we all know. Real life is found in relationships. And of course, paramount is our relationship with God. St. Augustine said, "Our hearts are restless until they find their rest in thee, O God." And we will be hungry. And so often when we are hungry, that's what we really need. We need time with God. But instead we go shopping. Listen, I'm talking to me. If anybody's listening, I'm grateful. And relationship with others. Jesus came to level the playing field among humanity by causing us to see the need and the ways that we can respond and the gifts and the blessings that we have to share, that we would share them and bless and level that playing field. Real life is found seeking the kingdom then and Christ's righteousness. Remember King Solomon, Ecclesiastes? Vanities, vanities, all is vanities. He tried everything, as he said, under the sun to find life. And then in the end, he concludes that it is found in relationships. Relationships with God and people. So trusting God, that's what it's all about. Trusting God, not what we have, not what we can do, not what we've already saved up. Not in our youthfulness and our strength or our wisdom of old age. In God we trust. You know it's on our money? Isn't that crazy? It's on our money. It's been our national motto since 1956. But do any of us here think we really have that as our motto in the United States? Are we really, as a country, trusting God to take care of us? Let's think about some ways that we can cultivate a trust in God and live that way. Cultivate gratitude. We've sung about it already. Mary Helen, as always, picked perfect hymns for our thoughts today. Recognize the truth of James 1:17, which says, "Every good and perfect gift comes down to us from God our Father." So let's remember that when we get a gift, when we remember a gift. Count it. Count it. Keep a log even if gratitude is an issue for you. Share what you've been given. Share with others what God has blessed you with, both in terms of telling them and in sharing actually what you have. Strengthen the relationships that we have. Major on relationships. Focus on furthering those. If we've been blessed with extra, bring people on over to the house and have a big feed. Figure out some way to bless people with what you have been blessed. Enjoy the possessions you already have. Instead of throwing them out, certainly. You can find all kinds of magazines to fix them up, repurpose them, recycle them, get new blessing out of them. Be on your guard, though, when you are blessed. A while back, I was talking with a friend about the possibility of some money really coming in, some big money coming in. And this friend of mine said, "Well, you know what? I think when we get a big sum of money or a blessing, God only expects us to give us 10% of it, and then the rest of it is ours to do with whatever we feel like." And I didn't say anything, but I thought, I don't agree. God's given us whatever he's given us. He may require that 10% in the Bible, but you know what? It all came from him. He should be able to call the shots on what happens with it. Don't you think? I'll conclude with this. Churches were never meant to be museums or banks. And we've been blessed here. We need to really think about what we do with that and not just think about it, but pray about it as we move into the future. Billy Graham said, "You'll never see a U-Haul behind a hearse." And people don't live forever, and churches go on when they do the will of God. If they circle the wagons and try to guard their future only the way that rich fool did, I don't think they'll have a future either. Coco Chanel said, "There are people who have money, and then there are people who are rich." Would you pray with me, please? Oh, Lord, again, with your parable, with these thoughts, we know that down to every breath we take, it comes from you. We have no claim on anything. Your word says you own the cattle on 1,000 hillsides. You send the rain and the sun. You cause our bodies to heal as they do. Everything we have comes from you. Lord, save us from the thinking that it is ours and that we made it happen. And Lord, take us out into this world to bless with everything you have blessed us with, including our experience with you as we share that, our faith, in other words. Oh Lord, because we know, again, our life is like grass here today and gone tomorrow. May we not be regretful when we're face to face with you at the way we lived. Fill us with gratitude that results in action. In your wonderful name. We come to a time of invitation. Perhaps the Lord has already been speaking to you on this topic or other. Maybe there is a decision that He would have you make this morning. I'm sure all of us, He would have us to make decisions. Is there one you need to make public? That is what this time is for also, that as we sing, you will come as the Lord leads you. And I'll be so thrilled to receive you, whether you are coming to seek church membership, to rededicate your life once again to the Lord, make any other decision you would like to make, or just simply to seek prayer. Come as the Lord